Okay, now we're live and we're going to be having participants join. We see the number of participants increasing rapidly on the webinar. So maybe let's allow for a couple of seconds for everyone to join. David, where do we have you today?
Sorry?
Where do we have you today?
I'm in Amsterdam. Yeah,
Amsterdam.
in the Netherlands.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, we have 73 countries represented, and we have.
Wow.
I don't know if we have anyone from the Netherlands. We probably do. We definitely have a lot of folks in Germany and France.
Cool.
That looks very cool.
Oh, the Dutch are represented.
Ah, cool. Hi there, Koen.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Koen Smeets is there. And yeah, Holland.
Awesome. Well, let me quickly, first of all, let me kick it off with saying, welcome everyone that's joining from the different teams, the mentors that are joining to this How to Pitch session. As you guys met me yesterday, my name is Alfonso Martinez. I'm from the Dominican Republic, but was a graduate student at MIT until like 3 weeks ago. And I'm part of the organizing team of the MIT COVID-19 Challenge, specifically this Latin America versus COVID-19 event, which is, it's been an incredible event in terms of the demand we've seen for it and in terms of the activity we've seen so far. So I'm incredibly excited to introduce David Beckett to this session. We are so fortunate to have David donate an hour of his time and also access to a bunch of his content on how to pitch for this specific event. He helped us with the previous event as well in Beat the Pandemic Round 2. So David, thank you so much for coming again online to pitch to everyone here.
No problem. Delighted to be here, Alfonso.
Thank you. I'm going to quickly change to Spanish, and sadly I cannot do it in Portuguese, but to Spanish I'll quickly change because we have a lot of Spanish-speaking folks.
Sure.
Para todos en la línea, ayer teníamos intérpretes disponibles, pero para esta presentación hoy no tenemos intérpretes disponibles. Lo tendremos ya mañana nuevamente. Sin embargo, David ha hecho algo maravilloso, y es que nos ha permitido tener una grabación de su video en su página web con subtítulos en español y en portugués. Así que si prefieres ver esta presentación, el contenido de esta presentación con subtítulos en español o portugués, por favor, tenemos esos links disponibles en el Hack Resources, los cuales están disponibles en Slack. I essentially just said that your video is available on Slack with subtitles. So with that, I'm gonna pass it to you, David. Turn off my video and let you. Thank you.
Okay, guys, I'm going to share my screen, so bear with me for a second. Yes, and we are here. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. And I'm delighted to share the tools today to help you make your winning pitch. I'm David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach, and I believe that great ideas need a voice. And I've been working with startups for the last 7 years and coached more than 1,100 startups now. And my job is always to help them tell their story in no time at all. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And you're going to be facing a 3-minute pitch. And the goal is to give you plenty of tools that will help you with that 3-minute pitch. And I've also worked with 29 different countries, trained a lot of people around the world. Pretty much any company in the world is realizing that people have no time. So they're looking to shorten their presentations and turn them into pitches. And I believe that great ideas need a voice. And we need this more than ever today, especially with the ideas that you guys are working on, because you can really make a difference in the world. Even if you make one small piece of difference to this COVID crisis that we're facing, that's not just making things easier, it's saving lives. So this is a moment when we need your voice. We need your great ideas. I can't do what you can do. I think you can come up with better ideas than me, but I can help you to be heard, be understood, and get that story out there. So along the way, you'll get plenty of chances to ask questions. And if you have questions, just ask them in the Q&A box. You can ask any time, but I will stop a number of times during this session to enable questions. So if you have some questions, we'll pick up as many as we can in this 1 hour session. And finally, you will receive many materials, the slides and the recording. As mentioned, the recording will have Portuguese and Spanish subtitles. And I have a number of materials in Spanish. My apologies that I don't have it in Portuguese, but I do have some pitch tip cards and some other information in Spanish. I'll give you the link to all of this at the end of the session. So here we go. The goal is to help you with making a great MIT COVID-19 challenge pitch. And our goal is to prepare you for your 3-minute pitch. Now I have a first question for you. How many words can you say in 1 minute and remain understandable? So this is a quick challenge for you. So just try typing in the Q&A box, how many words can you say in 1 minute and remain understandable? So please just type in a number of how many words you think you can say in 1 minute. So let's have a look. I see 35, 100, 60, 200, let's see 120, 45, 60. We're getting a lot of numbers. I must say there's plenty of numbers that are in the good area. So 500 there, 200. Okay, and 1,000. Yes, Thales, we're going to go for 1,000 words in 1 minute. Don't forget that it's about 150. It's about being understood. And I saw Rosfet said 150. A couple of other people mentioned 150. So guys, you can stop typing it in, because I'm going to reveal to you that the answer to this is actually, it's around 130 to 140 words. So the science is that people can listen to around 150 words per minute maximum. So my recommendation for your script is to make 130 to 140 words per minute. Now, you're going to make a 3-minute pitch. Should you memorize that whole pitch? I would say that you have a limited time, so probably to memorize the whole thing might be quite difficult. But I would at least make a starting script. And we'll work through in this workshop how to build your storyline, but then I would write down the basics of what you're going to write. And the maximum should be 150 words per minute. That means in 3 minutes, that's 450 words. And that's the absolute maximum that people can listen. My recommendation is make a little bit less, 130 to 140 words per minute. That's enough energy and speed for there to be a feeling of something's happening here, but there needs to be some air and some pause around the key messages so that they can process those messages. So when you're writing out your storyline, then do keep this in mind, around 130 to 140 words per minute. Okay, so the first thing to get started with when you're building your story in your pitch is, who is your audience and what do they care about? Now, the great thing is, you know exactly what they care about, because there are criteria for this pitch. And I can't stress enough that the judging criteria for this pitch is your starting point. So make sure that you hit all of these points. I'm going to share the 4 judging criteria with you now. Those points, firstly, are impact. You're solving a real problem with potential major health impact. And by the way, I will go through each of these points a little bit more in detail a bit later in the session. So first is the impact. Are you solving a real problem? Will you be able to make a major health impact? Can you quantify that? Can you say how many people or how many parts of the supply chain or the service chain for helping the COVID crisis, how many people or how many touch points Or what impact can you actually make? So try to quantify that. Next is innovation. Have you dealt with the tech issues? Bear in mind that there might be some potential resource limitations. Have you got these in mind? Then implementation. Could it be put into action? Could it be a sustainable proposition? Could this be implementable by a team in the program or together with the challenge partners? And then finally, the presentation. Is it a good pitch? Do you have a diverse team, a credible story? So these are the 4 things to start with. So I would recommend, now you're going to get all of these slides, but if you want a quick snapshot, take a picture right now with your phone, make a photograph of these 4 points. While you're taking your photographs, let me just tell you a very brief story. I once entered a pitch competition. It was for Freelancer of the Year here in Netherlands. And luckily I won. And one of the things that the jury told me was because we had a 1-minute pitch. So that was one of the things that was a criteria for winning that competition. And they gave 5 things that needed to be covered in that 1-minute pitch. And one of the people in the jury said, the reason that you won was because you were one of the few people to answer all 5 points. So just by focusing on these 4 points in the jury criteria, you really increase your possibilities of succeeding. Okay, then how do you create your storyline? Before we come to the content of what you're going to talk about, where I'll explain those criteria a little bit more, let me give you a process, a way to build your storyline. Now, firstly, let me show you how people normally do it. Normally, they open the computer and start typing into PowerPoint or Keynote or Prezi or whatever it is that they use. Now, the problem with that is that this is not how our brain works. When we're building a story or creating a pitch, we're in random mode. We're in creative mode. Our brains think very in a very non-logical fashion. We think, oh, we got to talk about that. Oh, and we just developed that in the last hour. Oh, and we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with, so, oh, and you're just in random mode. PowerPoint works very linear. Slide 2, bullet point 1. Slide 2, bullet point 2. And that's not what happens when we're building stories, building out our storyline. So my advice is to stop and don't open PowerPoint. My advice would be to grab some Post-its and build your storyline using Post-its. Now, if you don't have Post-it notes, just take some paper and tear it up into pieces about the square size of Post-it notes. You're doing this all virtually, so you might be able to use one of those virtual boards that are kicking around online. But first, brainstorm. Get your thoughts out and take a look at them before you start putting them into PowerPoint. Now, let me show you how it works. What you do is brainstorm and get the ideas out of your head. What's everything that you could talk about? What's the problem we're solving? How big is the impact if we solve it? What's the impact today? What's the impact tomorrow? Then the technical issues. Can we show that we've worked out how to build something? Have we taken into account the resources? Have we got a great pitch? Have we got a story that we want to tell? And have we got something about the team we want to tell? And why do I think this is a great idea? What am I going to put my enthusiasm into? And so on. And are we going to show screenshots of this? Are we going to show a working demo of this? All of these things are the things to get out of your head. Then you need to take a step back and think, okay, I've got all of these ideas. Maybe you've got 20 or 30 different things that you might say in those 3 minutes. But then you go back to who's the audience? How long have I got? So the audience is and what they care about are those 4 things that I mentioned. And how long have we got? 3 minutes. So therefore, take a step back and think, what are the big issues that I should touch on in these 3 minutes? And after that, organize your story around chapter headings. Now, let me show you what this might look like. Firstly, you'll have a rough brainstorm, and that rough brainstorm might look a little bit like this. Now, what you'll see here is that there's a lot of different information, and but on the left-hand side, you'll see pain, product, demo, unique, traction, team, and so on. These are the typical typical pillars of a startup pitch. And some of these pillars will be useful for you. However, when you come to building a storyline and you've got a 3-minute pitch, that's not so it's not so great to have so much information. So what you need to do is go and say, okay, what is the audience interested in, and which are the big topics that I want to talk about, and start to build a story that looks a bit like this. So you take the big topics that you want to talk about and make some chapter headings. Now you'll see on the right hand side that you have some orange post-its here. These are chapter headings. And then build content based on some of your brainstorm. And this way you can select from your random brainstorm, you think everything that you possibly could think, and then narrow it down to the key topics and build the story with a clear beginning, middle, and end. So problem that you're solving, the solution you've created, what does it look like? Why am I the person to make this happen? Have we got a team behind it that could really make it happen? Who have we spoken to? And then a final call to action. These could be the pillars of your pitch. So go from this random brainstorm, organize your thoughts, and build your storyline. Now, the value of doing it this way is that if you go down that route, you can see the beginning, middle, and end. That's something you can never do in PowerPoint. Also, it's very easy to move stuff around. You can think, oh, maybe we should put this bit here or that bit there. Very manual, very analog, but it's very quick. Think, right, done. So this is the process. Then what topics should be in your winning pitch? Well, we've already talked about it, the 4 key things, but let me break it down a little bit further for you. So the first is the pain, the problem that you're solving. So does the proposition solve an ongoing or anticipated problem? And does it address an important challenge identified in the prompt? So make sure that you connect with the guidelines given in the challenge at the very beginning, and try to make it as quantified as you can. Put some numbers on it. Try to make it so that it's clear what the problem is. Now, I normally advise people to spend a lot of time on the problem in a pitch. To spend, if you have a 3-minute pitch, you might want to make a 1 minute on that topic. However, what I do notice is that generally the problem is defined in the challenge. So you might want to keep the pain a little bit short and give yourself a bit more time on explaining the product. So make sure that it's crystal clear which part of the challenge you're addressing, which part of the problem, and if you can put some numbers on it, how big that problem is, this will really help you. So that's the starting point. Next is the impact. Is there a potential for widespread public health impact? How many people can you help? And is that doctors? Is it people who are suffering from the disease? Where is the help landing? So what's the impact? Who is it for? And how many people do you think you could help as a result? Then innovation. Is there a convincing rationale for why the solution may work? Are there significant technical issues? Have you addressed the problems or the technical issues that you might need to address? And are there any potential resource limitations? This might be an opportunity for you to show a short demo of your product. So make some screenshots, make a short movie of the product working. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody's looking for production-ready solutions. It's a hackathon. But do show what you've been working on. Make it as clear what the work has been. Then implementation. Could the proof of concept or the prototype be executed? Excuse me. Is it sustainable? Is it viable and feasible? And can you make possible implementation by one of the teams or the challenge partners? So implementation is a really important piece to address, because there needs to be some kind of a first step. How would you get this working? Who would you do it with? Have you had any connections with the people that could bring this to the next stage, the people or the organizations? So implementation is an important piece. It's not just building, but it's also taking it into the real world. And then presentation. How effective was the presentation? Does the team have a diversity of backgrounds that lends credibility to the solutions proposed? So don't be afraid to tell a little bit about the team. and what skills are there. There could just be 1 or 2 sentences about we've got these skills, those skills, these skills, and maybe you're from different countries or different backgrounds. Don't be afraid to give a couple of sentences for the people behind this concept, and make it professional. Be organized with your story, make every word count, and use these tools. Building the story, have a strong opening, be clear on the key messages, don't over-explain things, and come with a clear closing as well. And one last thing is, why you? What's your personal motivation to offer this proposition? Here's a person pitching. We hear about what's been worked on, we hear about the people behind it. That's kind of the engine of the pitch. But finally, we've got a person in front of us. Why should we believe you? You see, we have very little time, so we need to have some trust. And trust, a lot of the time, comes from somebody's personal motivation. So why do you believe this matters? Your enthusiasm really counts. So show why you're enthusiastic. Put your energy into it. Talk a little bit about how to do that a bit later on. But put your energy into it. Tell why you think this is a really cool idea, why you think it can make a big impact. Put yourself on the line. So we're going to take some questions in just a moment. But just to review, here's the process. So brainstorm the content on Post-its and quickly write down keywords and phrases, not full sentences. Now, Post-its or pieces of paper, and lay them out on a table in front of you, or if you have got Post-its, put them up on a wall. But just make sure that you've got a chance to sketch out your ideas before you go into PowerPoint. And then don't think too much, just write. And do this as a team. You've got virtual tools. Get all your ideas out and share those ideas among you. And then build a storyline targeting 3 minutes, hitting each judging criteria. So make sure you've got a clear beginning, middle, and end, and what are the big key messages, and build your content around those key messages. And you can start verbalizing the story, and that matters. Say it out loud. Have you got spoken language or written language? And try to make it so that you can say it out loud, that you hear it, your teammates hear it, and you start to find, is this the language we really want to use to communicate this story in the pitch? So this is the starting point about how to build the storyline. So I'm going to have a look at the questions. If you have some questions, do ask. I see firstly, do you see any difference between brainstorming in Post-its or in a software such as Xmind? So this is from David Moraes. So David, I think the answer there is use whatever works. And Post-its are great because they're very, they don't have tools, they don't have software tools. You can get it done, get it written down, but hey, you're in virtual locations, so use the software that works best. If you've used Xmind in the past, then I would definitely look at using that. There's another tool called Mural, M-U-R-A-L, that I've heard before, Mural. And so there's a number of different tools out there. Catching your attention in the first 10 seconds, Jorge, we'll come to that shortly. We're going to come to that in the next piece. Our presentations for the hackathon done by one person representing the team. In general, I would recommend for the 3-minute pitch, have one person. If you keep switching, it can be technically tricky. I wouldn't necessarily go for more people. Generally, I would say one person is a good idea. So let's see. We have in a minute is a minute for describing the problem too much. That's from Marcos. Marcos, I think I would try to make it a little bit shorter. The main reason for that is that I think the pain is described at the beginning. I think people are very aware of what the big issue is, but make specific what the part of the COVID crisis is that you're dealing with, the part of the challenge. But try to make it in 30 to 45 seconds. The rest of it, just spread it evenly. I don't have exactly a kind of a breakdown per minute, but just make sure that you look at those 4 points and make sure that it's clear what that you're hitting each of those 4 criteria and spread the information. So related to, let's see, it's most often recommended. This is from Koensmates in Netherlands. tell a positive gain story, and if so, how should we combine that with mentioning the pains? So I would mention the pain, so how many people are struggling, but also talk about what impact you can make. If we do this, then we can achieve that. I think that would really help. How to make the judges remember you even after hearing many other pitches. Well, that's where your personal enthusiasm comes, Felipe. I think that really matters, having your energy into it. And I'll talk about how to put energy with your voice a little bit later. Technical issues, and take them into account by high-level solution, present, or do you mean that we should consider only mentioning them in the presentation? So I think technical issues, if there's any technical issues that you think need to be solved or you've already solved, then mention that. And I think it also is about presenting it's about presenting your product and showing that it works. How much photos or videos help or not? Yeah, graphics, photos, small video of the product working, anything that visualizes, that's really powerful. And text, I would keep it a bit limited. Don't have too much text on the screen. Make it as visual as you possibly can with big headlines, big keywords. Impact is specifically about data regarding the pain aspects. Yes, I think it's about, here's the problem, here's the impact we can have on solving that problem. Guys, I'm going to move on. I'll take another quick couple of questions. Let's see, do you have a specific number of slides? No, I don't. Number of slides is actually not so important. What matters is the content and your storyline. So don't worry about having more slides. It's actually not a bad thing to have more slides. That changes people's attention. Just make sure you don't have too much information on. Would a PowerPoint presentation save a bad pitch? Probably not, actually. It's a bit, you need to just make sure the storyline is rock solid. Okay, guys, I'm going to go on to the next thing. When you're I have one pro tip for you. When you create a product demo, frame the product in a device. And what that means is if you show a screenshot like this, you don't really know what you're looking at. By the way, this is a screenshot from a product that I'm working on. I'm in a startup myself. And actually we present it like this, framed in a computer. And that makes it clear you're looking at a screenshot. So if you make a video of something, here's your app. It's actually my app. You're going to get access to this. But it's a bit odd just to see the movie like this. But if you see it framed in a device, suddenly it makes it come to life. This feels more like it's a real product. So frame your product in a device. You can find empty Mac screen, empty Android phone, empty iPhone online. And then you can just frame that when you demonstrate it. Okay, somebody asked about the opening. My advice is to make the first word count. Open powerfully. You only have 3 minutes. That's 180 seconds. You don't want to waste any of those seconds. Let me just take some water for a moment. Hold on, guys. So make sure that you use every second and make the first word count. That's because the first 20 seconds buys attention. If we don't catch people in the first 20 seconds, we might lose them. And that's because everyone has two questions in their mind at the beginning of any pitch. Is this person professional? So have they organized themselves? Have they clearly thought it through? Have they got a plan for what they're going to say? And do I want or need to know more? Is there a hook? Is there something that will surprise me? Can I be amazed by the amount of impact this could make? And so on. So these two questions are things that we need to address. Excuse me. So first, what we can do is quantify the problem. I'm going to give you a very simple example so you can see it. I coached a team called MobiPark. They have a parking app. And that parking app, what they could say is people find it quite difficult to park. So we built an app for that. But that doesn't really help us. If I'm living in the Netherlands, a lot of people don't have cars. They ride on bikes. And if I think, is it really difficult? I don't have a car. I don't connect with the problem. It doesn't help me understand it. If parking is quite difficult, how difficult? How difficult could it be? However, what they do is they quantify the problem. That means they put a number on it. They say, can you imagine on average in major cities, it takes people over 20 minutes to find a parking space every day? Can you believe that on average, over 30% of, can you believe in large cities, over 30% of all exhaust fumes are caused by people looking for parking space? And can you believe you're going to spend 1 year of your lives looking for a parking space? We're Moby Park, here to make it cheaper, easier, and fun to park your car. So what they do is, instead of saying it's quite difficult, they give you specifics. It takes over 20 minutes to find a parking space on average. 30% of exhaust fumes in major cities, 1 year. So 1 or 2 pieces of data can really help make it solid. That stops people having kind of general thoughts. We don't believe general statements. It becomes very specific. And secondly, be professional from the first word. Now I'm going to play this video. Probably it'll be a bit choppy for some of you. If it doesn't come across to you properly, don't worry. I'm going to tell you what he says. I just want to play this video. It's 15 seconds of the opening of the pitch, which is very professional.
Anything, any place, anytime. Why wait? My name is George, and I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Saddle. And our mission is to make your lives hassle-free by making sure that you can have anything delivered to you, any place, anytime.
Now, what you'll notice is that he doesn't say, hi, I'm really happy to be here. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share what me and my team are working on. What a lovely stage, and blah, blah, blah. He gets straight into the story. So he says, anything, any place, anytime. Why wait? So right from the beginning, he makes you a promise. Then he introduced himself. Hi, my name is George. My team and I were on a mission to make your lives hassle-free. That's the theme of this pitch and their solution. Make your lives hassle-free by, and then he repeats the promise, giving you anything you want, any place, anytime. And through that, and through the earlier example as well, that answered that question, is this person professional? Well, yes, because they had a plan. Do I want or need to know more? Absolutely, because they've given me clarity on, they've organized themselves, they're ready to go, and they've made me a promise. So how are they going to deliver on that promise? So the action step is to review your brainstorm and think to yourself, what would I say in the first 3 to 4 sentences? And write that down. So the process is first, get the jury guidelines, then brainstorm together as a team, and then start to write down pieces of the pitch. So build the storyline and then write down the opening 3 to 4 sentences. Now, at a certain moment, you need to decide who's going to make that pitch. I would suggest that this is the moment when you need to have a person nominated, and that person should write down the opening 3 to 4 sentences. Other people can do it as well in the team, and then test them out loud on someone else. So various people can try this, and you can try it with each other. So, for example, if I was in your team, I would write down, okay, I think this would be a good opening for this pitch, and then I would get connected with somebody else in the team and say, hey, let's try out my idea. And can you give feedback? Which one thing stood out? Which one thing did you not understand? And have you got friendly advice to making it better? So I would give my version, do that with somebody else in the team. They would give feedback, and then they would try out their version, give me their 3 to 4 sentences, and I would give feedback. And that way you can start to find out if somebody got a good idea for opening the pitch. So make sure that you think it through, write it down, say it out loud, and share feedback, and come to a conclusion about how you're going to open that pitch with power. Make the first word count. You have any quick questions on the start and the opening of the pitch? So any questions on the beginning of the pitch? But while you're thinking about that, as one question from earlier on, do you think there's a most common mistake in these 3-minute pitches? I think the most common mistake is running out of time, by the way. If you run out of time, then that's really frustrating, because you're going to not be able to finish your story. You'll have a piece of your story which isn't complete. So that's the most infuriating thing possible. So what platform would you use did I use to make my slides? I used Keynote, but you can use anything. If you use PowerPoint, you can use Google Slides. These are all fine. You recommend short statements like the one you showed us? Absolutely. Constantly ask yourself, can I say something shorter? Is it okay to have a short pitch with a long appendix to be reviewed offline? Honestly, I'm not sure about that. If any of the rest of the team want to answer that question, then feel free to answer it.
David,
yep.
I'll quickly interject on 2 points. Appendix, yes, you should, if you think you can do it in the 2-minute Q&A that you have with judges. In terms of platform to use to develop slides, generally, I agree completely with David. You can use whatever you feel most comfortable with. For this event particularly, we're using Google Slides. This indication is part of your participant guide. We are doing this because you'll see that for the final presentations, we'll ask you to submit your Google Slides and we'll collate Google Slides on your behalf prior to the final presentations. So platform, Google Slides.
Yep, Google Slides it is on this one, guys. Then from Edgar, is it a good idea to start with a question? The answer to that is yes, it is. Questions engage people's brains. So when you ask, can you imagine, it's a bit of a cliche, but it works because it causes people's brain to engage. So I would recommend to if you're going to have a question, try to make it very simple though. If you say, what do you think of world peace? People don't know what to say. It's too wide. But if you were doing a face-to-face pitch, you would say to people, who thinks that world peace is important? Put your hand up if you think world peace is important. And there's only 2 things the audience can do. So question is good, but if you're expecting an answer from an audience, you might need to be specific about what you want them to do. I think in this case, with a jury, it's very unlikely that they will do something. So you can ask a question and make it rhetorical. So what would happen if such and such came through? Well, let me tell you. That would be the way to deal with that question. Relaxing, we'll touch on managing nerves. I must say it's one of people's biggest fears is presenting in front of people. Learning the first 4 or 5 sentences is one of the best ways to overcome your nerves, whether it's virtual or in person. So really learning those first 60 seconds is really a great way. When you've got a hackathon, it's difficult to memorize exactly, but get the first 3 or 4 sentences rock solid. Using the first 20 seconds only for talking about the problem in order to engage the audience, is that a bad strategy? That's from Tammy. No, it's a good strategy. Get people in with the problem and then provide them a solution. It's a problem that's not affecting directly to you. It's a better question or a story. Either will do fine. It doesn't have to be something that affects you directly, but you can share your enthusiasm for it. That's for sure. What makes a pitch professional? Everything that's in the workshop. No, but I think having a plan from the beginning, brainstorming, getting clear what the storyline is, addressing the requirements from the jury. These are definitely things to address. Then what do you think about telling a story about a fictional character or person? Yeah, absolutely. Here's John. John experiences, or here's Jill. She experiences such and such. Give people a small day in the life of the people who are experiencing this problem. That's a good way to do it. In your opinion, which of the 4 steps is the most important? Yeah, I think, Melissa, probably a mixture. Actually, I'm not sure any one is really the most important. Covering all 4 is what matters. Do we need to say the name of the product in the beginning? Yeah, I think it's good to introduce yourself. Hi, this is who I am. This is what we do. From David, would using too direct speech be seen as less empathetic? That would be a good idea to connect with an audience. In a pitch, I think you can be pretty direct. Try to be clear and straightforward and get to the point. How to frame the camera for the pitch? So do think about the background. If you've got a lot of stuff in the background, that can be messy. So do think about the background. Also, you'll notice, I'm not sure if you can see me now, but I put the camera at eye level so that you can look at the audience. If you put the camera below you, as a lot of people do, you're looking down on the audience. So that can be challenging. Francisco asked, how can we communicate with body language in a digital platform? Yeah, voice is very important. And I'll make sure we just spend a couple of minutes on that. Body language, facial expression matters, but you tend to be a small part of the story. So just physically make sure that you're sitting upright, that you're square onto the audience, that's nothing crossed. That can help you. That will also be subconsciously picked up. And let's take one more question. Would you recommend reading all the pitch from a script versus only reading part of the pitch and memorizing? So my recommendation would be do make a script, but don't feel like you've got to follow it exactly word for word because you have a limited time to memorize. You know, if you were doing this pitch next week and you already had done the work, I would recommend to memorize it during this week. However, because you've got limited time, then just verbalize the pitch in advance. Get your slides organized, get the storyline organized, especially the opening and the closing. I would script and try to memorize the first 3 or 4 sentences and the last 3 or 4 sentences, but just get used to talking over the slides within those 3 minutes. So practice quite a few times if you can set time aside for that. Take another couple of questions. Would it be okay to pitch in informal language or formal? Well, let me give you an example. If you say, we will execute our high-level strategic plan in the coming 2 quarters, that's technical language. But if you say, we've got a great plan, we're going to make it happen in the next 6 months, that's spoken direct language. So try to make sure it's spoken direct language, not written language. And how to end a pitch with a boom, I'm going to come to that. No worries. Last question I'll take now is, if I'm a serious person, how should I talk? I change my energy when I'm speaking, or how should I do it? Well, you know, if you're a serious person, be in line with the person you are, but do look for a moment when you might be able to lighten the tone a little bit. So we're on a serious topic, but do be prepared to, if you can possibly lighten it, tell about your enthusiasm for the solution, why you believe it's a great idea. This can really help. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next part, which is making your story focused and memorable. This is the power of 3. And this is about narrowing down to the essence of the story. Sometimes you might have 7 things or 8 things you want to tell about your product or the problem you're solving or the impact you're making. But the problem is people can't handle 6, 7, 8 things. They can't process it. So the power of 3 is your friend in this situation. Keep things to the essence. If you find yourself wanting to tell 5, 6, 7 things, ask yourself which 3 things really matter. Now, why is it 3? Well, there's a lot of science about why we like things in 3s. I won't bore you with the science. I'll just tell you the 3s are in the air. They are all around us. We execute on the power of 3 every day. It's ready, steady, go. Lights, camera, action. Veni, vidi, vici. Beginning, middle, end. Bronze, silver, and gold. You know, we have power of 3s all around us. It's one of the oldest tools in public speaking history. It's been going for 25 centuries. So it simply works. Now, how do you apply the power of 3? Well, you can break your product down into 3 big qualities. You can tell them our product is faster, it's lower cost, and it's so much easier to use. Of course, I'm using some generic examples. Find your examples. But you might say, so our product is X. It's this, this, and this. And then just give them a bit of explanation about that, maybe while you're showing the product, about each of those 3 things. Why is it faster? It's because. It's lower cost because. And it's so much easier to use because. That way, you give them a 3-part promise, and then you deliver on that 3-part promise. Now, it doesn't mean that everything needs to be in 3s. There's nothing wrong with a 2, nothing wrong with a 4. But if you find yourself wanting to tell 7 things, probably you need to cut it down. So have this mindset of the power of 3. So, and you can do the same thing with the whole pitch. You could break it down to, we've identified a very specific, massive problem in the COVID crisis. We've come up with an implementable solution. We've come up with a unique solution, which is easy to implement. So do think about how you're going to break things down into pieces so that they can process it. Now, the action step, if you could only tell them 3 things, what would you tell? Sometimes it's good to ask yourself about the product or about the whole pitch. And then step 1, choose those 3 big things that you want them to remember. And step 2, write down 1 or 2 sentences for each of those items. This will help you build content on your pitch. So you could think about, okay, which 3 things would I want these people to remember about the product or about the impact or about the team, and narrow it down to those things. This will help you get to the essence of the story. And finally, I was asked the question, how do you finish with a bang? Well, the goal is to finish like a true professional. And a true professional means energy to the last full stop. Have a plan until the last full stop. Now, I've got a method, a kind of a structure for you, which you can follow. You can find your own way, but this is one structure for an ending. So make a plan for the last 20, 25 seconds. And that could mean, so what you've seen is this, this, and this. That'd be a 3-point, 1-sentence summary. Then, if we win, we'll change this. What would be the impact? So if we can succeed, we'll be able to change this. We can make this go from bad to good. We can make these problems become solutions. What's the impact that you'll make? And one final statement could be, I believe in this idea because. Give your personal statement of what you believe. Now, this is only one structure. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not saying finish like this. I'm saying this is one way to finish. My point is make a plan. Make sure that you have a plan for those last 20 seconds. Why? Because the last thing you say is the first thing they will remember. That's how the brain works. We remember the last thing we heard. So which points do you want to land in their brain at the end of the pitch? Because that's the first thing that they will remember. And don't forget to say thank you, because thank you means I've finished. You can clap now. Now, actually, in these virtual events, probably you won't get a round of applause, but you'll get a virtual round of applause. In their mind, it's like, okay, we're done here. And when we get back to pitching face-to-face, don't ever forget to say thank you, because then you'll definitely get a round of applause. People need to know when it's finished. That helps them feel like, okay, we're done. Gives them a good feeling. All right. So any more questions before I share with you the tools? They can be about any topic. So would you finish with the problem that you're solving instead of including the problem at the start? No, I would have the problem at the start. Solve the problem right at the beginning. And then you can remind them of that problem being solved. So the impact at the end, you can close that circle. Would you open with the power of 3? You can do. You could say, so here's the problem. And the result of this problem is this many people, this much hassle, this much lost time, and then go into how you're solving that. Or you could say, so what we're dealing with is, here's the problem, here's the solution, and this is why we think it's amazing. That's what we're going to cover. And then go through those 3 things. So you can do that. What do you think about finishing with a call to action? So I think in a competition, that's from Cecilia, I think in a competition, it's kind of obvious what the call to action is. So in every other pitch, except competitions, I always recommend have a call to action. So for example, if you believe in our vision, come and talk to us. Let's arrange a 1-hour meeting to discuss investment opportunities. That's a clear call to action. Or go to our website, download our beta version. That's a call to action. Here, I think it's more about, the call to action is please choose us. But I think I would position that as more, if we win, we'll do this. That's a way to get that call to action. Then, how many people do you recommend participating in a 3-minute pitch? I would definitely keep it to 1, would be my recommendation. You could have 2 if you have very well organized the handovers. But in general, especially when it's online and there's technical issues, just go for one person would be my recommendation. Assuming a slide is a minute, this is from Koensmates. Assuming a slide a minute should be summarized at the end of each slide with a single sentence. Yeah, even I would recommend a bit more than a slide a minute. Don't be afraid to repeat stuff. So people forget things very easily. So don't be afraid to summarize and have repetition. There's no harm in that at all. Do we have to ask them for questions? There will be some questions. I think there's 2 minutes Q&A at the end. So that will be a good time for questions. What's the ideal way to introduce a technical question? That will be that hasn't been completely solved by the team. Is it enough to have someone else say that it can be solved? Yeah, I don't think you need to have a solution for every single thing. You know, I think there's the strength in saying one thing we'll need to deal with in the coming weeks is X, and we're already aware of that. That way, you put it out there and show we've thought this through. So don't be afraid to mention that. Then, would you recommend introducing the team in the beginning or the end? In general, I recommend at the end. That's because we don't know if the team is the right one until we've seen what you're doing. So I've had teams start and they say, yeah, but we've got a strong team. Unless you've really got something that is amazing, then I would put the team at the end. Make clear what the problem is you're solving, the solution you've created, what it looks like, why you're committed, and then you could talk a bit about the diversity of the team at the end. What if in the middle I forget my pitch? You know, that can happen, and it just can, but use the slides as your reminders. So make sure that you've got some key anchor points so that when you see an icon or a keyword, you know what to say next. And don't worry, you know, it's a hackathon. People are not expecting perfection. If you make a mistake, that's very human. It's okay. Just say, hey, I lost my thread. Please wait a moment and then carry on. When brainstorming, is it better to do that on our own before sharing with our peers? I think it's good to have a little brainstorm on your own and then share as a team. So do it as individuals and then put everything together. If you can find a shared platform to do that, that's great. But you can also just take pictures of scribbles and share them somewhere. So just be practical and think about the best way to do that, but do let your brain work as an individual and then share the ideas together. Is it a good idea to keep moving as you're talking to the audience? Yeah, a little bit of movement is fine. Don't be afraid to show your energy. Your hands can make you can put energy with your hands, but bear in mind you're generally a thumbnail or a bit smaller. So most of all, put energy into your voice. On that topic, I think we've got I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the voice because I think this really makes a difference, and then we'll go to the tools. So let me just talk briefly about the voice because there's been a number of questions about how do you make impact. And the most effect you have, especially with an online talk, is your voice. Your body language has less impact because you're smaller, you're not physically there, but your voice has a massive impact. So the goal is to communicate what you think and feel and what you want them to think and feel. You guide them in what you want them to think and feel by the way that you use your voice. So let me show you how this works. You see, every sentence has key words that change the meaning, and your energy and emphasis on those words changes the meaning. So let me give you an example. Here's a phrase that I've learned. Anthony said that his boss did not commit a fraudulent act. There, I've said those words, I've handed them over to you, but I haven't given you any information about what I think or what I feel, what you should think, what you should feel. But I could say it in a very different way. I could say, Anthony said that his boss did not commit a fraudulent act. He said he didn't do it, but the meaning is probably he did, right? Even though he said he didn't, the boss probably did. Then I could also say, Anthony said that his boss did not commit a fraudulent act. It wasn't his boss, it was somebody else's boss. So that's a different meaning. Then I could also say it with a different emphasis and another meaning. Anthony said that his boss did not commit a fraudulent act. He simply didn't do it. Or I could say, Anthony said that his boss did not commit a fraudulent act, ... but he was probably on the edge, right? So the way that you say something changes the meaning. Now, what should you do? Should you go through every sentence of your pitch and do this? Probably not. But the opening, the closing, and the key messages, make sure you're putting the energy and the emphasis on the words that matter. So say it out loud, verbalize, do say things out loud, find where the emphasis is and try and put more energy on the words that really matter. So you guide them on what they should think and feel. And do improve your voice by recording yourself presenting. Nobody likes doing this, but record yourself, listen back, and think, how can I put more energy? Should I put more emphasis on certain keywords? And finally, think about standing up. If you can set your computer up and stand while you're pitching, this always gets a bit more energy into the pitch. Guys, I'm going to jump straight into the tools because we're just at the end of the session. And firstly, please note this link at the bottom of the page. This link is for the recording with subtitles, for the slides, and a whole bunch of other stuff, and all sorts of materials in English and Spanish. And there you'll find my online app, my free app. The app is completely free. It's called Pitch Professional. It's on iOS and Android. You can download that completely for free. And there you will find some, you'll find the pitch canvas, explanations of the pitch canvas, some example pitches, pitch tip cards, and a bunch of pitch tip videos. So it's completely free. Get hold of that. The link is on the page. Then I have a one-pager, Make a Winning Hackathon Pitch. It's a one-page reference for everything that I've told you here. So you get the slides, but if you want a quick reference of what steps to follow, download this page. It's also on that link. So that's a one-pager, Make a Winning Hackathon Pitch. You'll also find a link for a free pitch workshop. This is maybe something you want to pick up later. It's about 30 minutes of video broken into 12 chapters. And this will help walk you through the steps. And if you're looking for some reminders of some of the steps or some expansion on some of the steps I've talked about today, go to this workshop and you'll find it, and it's completely free for you. And finally, don't forget that you'll get the slides, you'll get everything that you need. And if you need to connect with me, I would love to connect with you. I'm on LinkedIn, and I will be very happy to connect with you. So do contact me that way. I wish you the very best of luck with this hackathon. It's so important. It's great that you're putting your time, your energy, and your skills into this. And if you want to find out more about what I do, you can find out more at best3minutes.com. Do go to this link at the bottom. You'll find all the materials. My name's David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach, and I believe that great ideas need a voice. So, Alfonso, over to you.
This was incredible, David. I got to say, this is the second time that I watched this presentation, and I think I learned even more than the first time. So thank you.
Cool.
I really did. And I see that the versions in Spanish of the content are up and running. So for everyone on the line,
Yes.
if you want the content, it is in Spanish as well. The video, the same content, obviously not this video, but one was recorded in the past with the same content, has Portuguese and Spanish subtitles. With that, David, I want to thank you again. This was incredible. Thank you so much also for making time on this weekend where I know that you're really busy. Thank you for carving out time when I believe your daughter is birthday's tomorrow.
It's actually my little boy. So I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. My little boy had to postpone his party from a few months ago because it was just before lockdown. Finally, in the Netherlands, we're able to have a party. So he's got a party for tomorrow. So he's looking forward to that.
That is really, really cool. So thank you for carving out time on that special weekend. I really do appreciate everything you're doing.
No problem at all.
This overall initiative. So with that, David, let me let you go and let me say thank you for everyone that joined.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. All the best. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.